Hi! You guys probably already know this, but I'm officially a mum now. Like, I'm someone's emergency contact for life. I've got this. Bub is down for a nap right now, so if he starts to cry, BRB. But I thought that I would share my birth story because this is my first birth experience. It has always been a huge fear of mine ever since I filmed my mum giving birth to my little sister at 15 years old. I had a really positive birth experience. My labor was 3 hours long and I got that baby out in 4 pushes. So I wanted to talk about this because it was not what I was expecting at all. I know all birth experiences are very different. I'm very thankful that I had a positive experience. I want us all to know that there is no such thing as too much information here, okay? I am a chronic oversharer. That's what I do. So let's get into it. At around 37 or 38 weeks, I started experiencing some early labor symptoms. I had period-like pain, which would keep me up into the night. It usually happened at nighttime for me, and then it would just disappear and randomly come back like the next night. I had some back pain, a lot of pelvic pressure. It started to feel like there was a bowling ball in my pelvis. And I had some good old diarrhea, which was actually a nice little break because I was experiencing constipation my whole pregnancy. So diarrhea, I was like, you may. When I had my appointment with my obstetrician, she said it did sound like my body was preparing for it to kick off, but it kind of drew out over a week. Like, I was 1 centimeter dilated, but it wasn't progressing into proper early labor with contractions and things like that. It was really drawing out. So eventually I ended up agreeing to being induced, my experience being induced. I actually really enjoyed it. Dylan and I went to the hospital in the morning, and once everything was set up and we were ready to go, Dr. Abigail Evans broke my waters and she said that labor should start naturally very soon, but I felt really calm and I felt ready. I was so ready to meet my baby, but there was obviously still a lot of fear there and the unknown of like, how long is this going to take? What's it gonna feel like? All of those things. So anyway, after Dylan set up all of the fairy lights, he ended up going to Coles, like a local grocery store, and getting bags and bags of my favorite snacks to keep me fueled through what we expected to be a very long marathon. We were wrong. While Dylan was gone, I started to feel really light contractions coming on and I was like, okay, it's happening. Dylan got back half an hour later and my contractions had already progressed quite a bit. Like, here we go. There were 2 midwives there. My obstetrician was gone. She was gonna come back 3 hours later to check on me and see how I was going, and then she would leave again and come back later. So everyone was really just chilling. And I was like, okay, we've got time. I will admit, I had always planned on having an epidural. I just wanted to see what my body could handle, what my mind could handle. And then at the point where I was like ready to check out, I was like, yeah, you know what? Experience contractions. I'm done. Please get me the epidural. Like, that's what the plan was. And because that was my plan, I was not expecting that 1 hour in, I'd already be considering getting the epidural. My contractions had amped up in the level of pain so quickly. I started to feel like a wuss. When the midwives came in, I asked them, like, at this point, where are we at with labor? Like, are we in active labor now? Because this thing hurts. And when she looked at my contractions on the screen and like how long it had been, only an hour, like I said, she told me, you're still in the early labor stages. Like, this is just the beginning. You'll know when you're in active labor because you won't be able to speak. And I was just like, okay, like I can still speak, I guess. So I just gotta rough it out. Not sure if I mentioned, but at this point, Dylan was back with me and he was massaging my back and he was putting the TENS machine on my back as well. As soon as we put that on, I was like, oh yeah, this helps. Dylan would put a cold, wet tea towel across my forehead, which really distracted me. And then we also ended up bringing in gas. It's meant to make you feel a little bit lightheaded, kind of take the edge off the feeling of the contractions. I don't know if it did that for me. I wasn't feeling lightheaded. I was feeling very like present and with it. But it did help me focus on my breathing, and it makes a big noise when you breathe in and breathe out. So I was just focusing on the noise and I was focusing on big deep breaths in, big deep breaths out, and like staying calm. I had listened to some hypnobirthing audios leading up to that point, and because of that, I also had those affirmations in the back of my mind telling me like my body was made for this, each wave is bringing me closer to my baby. All of those things I was like telling myself, while also focusing on the cool sensation of across my forehead, focusing on my breathing, and having the little jolts in my back that helped me not focus on the wrapping pain that was around my back, belly, pelvis. And I highly recommend combining those three things. It really helped me. I don't know what I would have done without it, to be honest. I ended up saying to Dylan, I think I have to tap out. It's only been an hour and a half, but I think I'm done. Like, I might be a bit of a wuss, but that's okay with me. Like, I'm done. This is too much for me. Next time I saw the midwives, I said to them, like, I think I want the epidural now. They called my obstetrician and let her know that I was ready for the epidural. And they asked her, do you want us to check her and just see how dilated she is, see what's going on? My obstetrician ended up saying yes. Give her a little check and see where she's at. And this is the moment where everything clicked for me. So I'm lying down, spread eagle, people staring into the hoo-ha. And all I see are two faces look at each other like this. Okay, yep. She's about 8 centimeters dilated. I can feel baby's head. And then looks at me and tells me how well I'm doing considering I'm just about to deliver a baby. When they tell you that you're in active labor when you can't speak through the contractions, that could very well be the case. I totally understand that, but for some, you might still be able to, okay? So I'm just putting that out there because that's how I was measuring when I would be in active labor. And that was deceiving. So anywho, they told my obstetrician that I was about 8 centimeters dilated and to get down here pronto because the baby is coming. I think people just don't even realize like how far along I was because it was so early on in the day. I think they were expecting I was still in early labor because a lady came in with the menu for the next few days and she was asking me what I wanted for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks for the next 3 days in a row, and going through all of the options while I'm in active labor. And I didn't even know what I chose. Over the next few days, it was like opening up Christmas presents. I was like, oh, wouldn't have chosen that if I was in the right state of mind. But you know what? I'll eat it. So everything was happening then. It was all hands on deck. I was like looking at Dylan like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to deliver naturally. And like, that is so fine. And honestly, now I kind of wish I did because I was so close and it happened so quickly. But in my mind, the feeling of knowing the epidural was coming was like getting me through. I was like, okay, it's coming. It's just a matter of time. Like, this might be the last contraction before you don't feel anything. My obstetrician ended up arriving. When she got there, she checked me and told me that I was 9 centimeters dilated. Bub was already traveling through the birthing canal, very, very close to delivering. He was delivering himself. Like, my body was pushing this baby out. And I was just like, whoa, 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 slow down. Let's pause for a second. Let's pause. The anesthesiologist or I don't know how it's said, but the person who administers, let's go with it, the epidural, still had to travel from wherever they were to the hospital. As soon as I saw the man who was coming in to put the epidural in my back, it was like I was seeing a superhero. I was like, yeah, baby. And he wanted to have a conversation. He was like, hey, how are you doing? Blah, 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 asking me questions. I was like, this baby's about to pop out. Get it in my back. Eventually, they prepped me for an epidural and they told me that it could still take about 20 minutes to half an hour for it to kick in, and we'll just see how it goes. And I thought, I'm gonna be having a baby in that time. Woo! They put the epidural in. Epidural guy asks me if I can move my legs and move my toes. I could. I could. And then he grabs a little bit of ice, or it was something really cold, and he puts it on my chest and he says, can you feel that? I said, yes. And then he puts it on my belly. He says, can you feel that? I said, yes. And then he puts it a little bit lower, my lower belly, and he says, can you feel that? And I say, yes. Why can I feel that? He said, okay, that's all right. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. They tip me on my side to try to get the epidural juice to go down to the other side. It eventually works, it kicks in, and immediately I'm like, guys, this is great. This is the best thing ever. And I could feel the pressure of Bub down there. So it wasn't like I could feel nothing. It just took most of the pain away. And I was like, oh, I can handle this. He asked me on a scale of 1 to 10 how painful it was before the epidural kicked in. And I was like, about a 9 or a 10. And then once the epidural kicked in, he asked me how bad the pain was, and I was like, about a 5. About a 5. About a 5. Like, it was a good moment. From that moment on, my obstetrician said, okay, your baby's coming. It's time to push. So Dylan's up here on this side. He's holding my hand. In my next contraction, they tell me to push like I'm pushing out a poo. It's like I forgot how to push out a poo, even though I've been doing it my whole pregnancy long with constipation. So I do be pushing those poos. So anyway, I'm like thinking I'm pushing. I'm like, I think like, and I do 2 pushes in that contraction. And Dr. Abigail Evans is saying like, good, good. And I'm like, am I better than everyone? Kidding. At this point, she did say that it looks like, because this baby's coming so quickly, that I'm going to tear. So she gave me an episiotomy to stop me from tearing through to my butt. And then we wait for the next contraction. I can feel all of the pressure. I can just feel the baby like right there. And then in the next contraction, she says, okay, big push. We do a big push. And then she says, okay, stop. Do you want to touch your baby's head? And I can see Finley's head sticking out. I can see the hair. I'm like patting his head. It's the weirdest thing. I could see it. I was smiling gleefully because of the epidural. And it was the coolest experience. I was like, whoa, I can't believe I'm doing this. And I also can't believe that it's not the most scary thing in my life. Like, I built it up in my head to be the whole time. Again, just my experience. I know I might have a very different experience next time, but let me just soak in this experience, okay? And then she ended up saying to me, just breathe. This baby is coming out. You don't need to push. Just breathe him out. And then I breathed my baby out. Just, and he came out. It was the wildest thing, just like a little slippery little octopus, just, and then he was placed on my chest, and it was the most surreal feeling ever. I just remember looking at Dylan and like us looking at each other like, what? So like, I did that, like, what? He was this little tiny purple alien. I wasn't expecting, because he hadn't gotten his color yet, and he just had gunk all over him and blood all over him, just all the good stuff, because that's what he's been living in. That's been his little home for the last 9 to 10 months. So yeah, in the end, Bub ended up being born about 3 hours after my labor actually started, and everyone was so nice. He was born at Pindara Private Hospital. Everyone at Pindara was so wonderful. They were so uplifting and encouraging and like telling me how well I had done. I'm not sure if I'm forgetting anything. If I am, I'm sure it's not too big a detail and I can always like touch on it later. My obstetrician did warn me that with my second baby, I will likely not have time to have an epidural, because the second babies usually come faster than the first, which also makes me think that the first sign of labor, I have to get in that car and I have to get to the hospital, because it's a little bit of a drive from where we live to the hospital. So I may end up delivering at home or in the car. It was a very full-on intense experience, but it was beautiful, empowering, amazing, and nothing like I would have expected beforehand. I couldn't have asked for anything more, honestly. I had an amazing experience. I could babble on for ages, but I won't. I will leave it there. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope I'm gonna be able to film some more YouTube videos if Bub goes down to sleep for long stretches, like right now. He's doing very well. And I'll be able to create some more long form video, but otherwise you can find me on Instagram. I'm very active on there. I would love to be friends over on there. So if you're seeking more positive content on your social media feeds, I hope I can be one of those people for you. I hope I can be a safe space for you, and I will see you in the next video.